Boom! What up, ladies and gentlemen? How a military mindset built an empire. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Let's get this one started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life: prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Boss! All right, ladies and gentlemen, he's the strategist who went from the trenches of adversity to the front lines of leadership. Whether you're an entrepreneur, executive, or just someone hungry for breakthrough, he's here to show you how guerrilla mentality can be your greatest weapon. So please welcome to the show, Mr. Darius Ross. All right, Mr. Ross, welcome to the program.
Hernan, I appreciate it. Pleasure to be here. Appreciate it.
All right, let's jump into this thing. What exactly is the military guerrilla mentality, and how can entrepreneurs apply it to dominate in their industries?
I'm going to show my age here. I'm going to talk to folks that will relate to this. Let's go back to the 1970s, and some of you probably remember the cartoon The Guerrilla. And that cartoon was at the same time Planet of the Apes was playing. And there was a newscaster, Walter Cronkite, that was on. And I was always amazed at how these gorillas, which I thought was Planet of the Apes, how they were fighting. And you're like, wow, these Viet Cong, this is pretty cool here. You know, these apes getting it in. They're really having it happen. So that military mindset was based upon that theory that the Viet Cong were very smart. I mean, they were able to turn around and strategically keep a foreign superpower at bay for years, if not decades. And so with that in mind, they were underground. And that whole mindset of being underground, you know, don't necessarily move where everybody sees you move. Don't operate in open. Be willing to turn around and be very quiet and very calm and very cool, and then play chess versus checkers. And that's very important as to how you operate. And that teamwork of the understanding where everybody has to turn around and have cohesive bond, where we don't all operate and just out there just blasting what we're doing, whatever else. You're operating below the surface, very quietly, very cool, and you're building empires. And that's how it's really done.
Man, and just face it, when you're in battle, when you're in war, so many things can go up, down, left, right. You make a plan and then it never goes according to plan. There's so many things that have to change. It does remind me a lot of that entrepreneurial space where you have a plan, you have an idea, you have a business plan that you're supposed to execute, but then when you go to execute it, nothing ever goes to plan. You're always putting out fires. You're always making changes. I mean, life is like that. You've had some major life changes. How have they shaped your business philosophy and approach to leadership?
One of the first ones was being homeless. At the time, the house had a fire in it. And, you know, I went back to the house after the fire and I'm looking at the house going, okay, now where are you going to stay at? So I looked at the couch. Couch still had the pillows. The house still could function. It was a little smelly. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sleep here tonight. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to start rebuilding. So I slept on the couch all night, coughed all night. The windows were boarded up and I started in the house there with sledgehammer. Went to Home Depot, got the sledgehammer and the axe and picks, and I gutted the entire house. We're talking about a 3-story house. Gutted it by myself. Put everything in the dumpster and everything else. And said, you know what? Now it begins again. So the bottom line of it was, what choice did I have? You know, you have another place to go. The insurance company is not paying at this time, so you got to wait. So now the issue of the hour is this house is here. It's yours. Make it do what it do. Don't turn around and be like, oh, I'm out in the street. What am I going to do? No. That thought came across for 1 hour. Then it's like, well, you have something to work with here. Make it work.
Yeah, you know, and people go through adversities all the time. I mean, not everybody gets their house burnt down. So, I mean, that's a big one that you had to go through. But adversities do happen all the time. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to get yourself out of that victim mentality because you were a victim of some of the things that end up happening in your life. You know, whether it was your fault, whether you started the fire or not, it doesn't matter. There are times in your life where you will feel like the victim, but you can't dwell in it. You can't just sit in that spot until at some point point, you got to decide, all right, in the morning, I'm getting the pickaxes and I'm destroying everything inside, and I'm going to rebuild from here on out to make things better. And walk me through how your guerrilla mindset kind of leads directly to breakthroughs that you've seen, big wins that you've seen in business.
In one particular case, it was a multi-million-dollar foreclosure and bankruptcy. And the issue of the hour was to the bank. It was a funny thing. Like Meyer Lansky said, violence is bad for business, right? So here's the situation. So I'm asking the bank, I'm like, listen, so if you lose $1 million, what happens? He goes, I got to turn around and report back to my superiors, and it could be a loss, and I might lose my job. So if it's $2 million, what's the deal? I said, so, okay, if it's $3 million, what's the deal? So then I'm going, okay. So now here's the situation. If I go into bankruptcy and foreclosure, you're fucked. So the bottom line is, what's your next move? So he's like, well, let's talk about this. Let's figure this out. Let's see how we can work this out. Okay. Because all of a sudden I'm making him understand you don't have a choice.
Yep.
I don't have a choice, but you don't really have a choice because you got to write it off on your books. And the bank's not in the real estate business. So of course, the bottom line of it is that moment in time when you realize that your back is against the wall, but you don't know what the other situation on the other side of the table is either. So maybe the other person is in a worse predicament than you are, but you just don't know it yet because you haven't really studied their situation. And sometimes you have to ask the right questions to get the right answers.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, if you're talking about 2005, 2006, 2007 era, I mean, the banks were in it. Like their backs were against the wall. There was foreclosure after foreclosure after foreclosure. There was a lot of these assets sitting on their balance sheet that they needed to definitely get rid of. They were willing to negotiate with those who could negotiate, because there were so many people out there who weren't going to negotiate. They were just going to stay in the house, not pay the mortgage payment, and let the bank do its thing, because they knew it was going to take them about a year or two to get stuff out of the way. When situations like that come up, you're trained to kind of overcome them, but you're helping people kind of first identify that they're in a situation and then take action to move forward. What are like the top 3 mindset shifts that you teach entrepreneurs and executives to make when adversity hits? Because sometimes you don't know what the next step is going to be. They might be in a situation like you were on the couch crying for about an hour trying to figure out what my next step is.
3 things: acceptance, diligence, and patience. You've got to accept the situation you're in. You've got to be diligent enough to realize, have I really done my due diligence? And I'm shortening it diligence. Have I really done my due diligence to figure out what the situation really is? Where am I in this pipeline of a problem? Am I at the end of the problem, or am I at the beginning of it? Or do I have room to maneuver on either side, the beginning and the end? And then the patience aspect of it is, are you patient enough to play it out? Because sometimes it's like anything else. If you just play it out, everything works out okay. But you've got to be smart enough to realize where you are in the situation, accept your situation, and then realize, okay, you know what? I've got some room to maneuver. So those 3 things: acceptance, the diligence, to be able to look at it and really study it. But again, that comes down to the same thing. Have you been observant of what you've been in all the time? And were you watching what was going on around you? So many people fail that one test. They're not diligent as far as looking around them. It's like I always say in New York City, look up. If you look up, you realize these skyscrapers are all owned by somebody. So what makes you any different that you can't be part of the pie?
Yeah. And when you look up, I know sometimes I'm in cities like that and I look up, I feel so insignificant sometimes. And when you're in business, sometimes you're all alone and you feel sometimes that insignificant feeling, or imposter syndrome sets in the moment you start challenging yourself to go to that next level and you find yourself in a room where you're the lowest one on the peg there. How do there's a lot of people out there who find themselves in that situation. I'm dealing with a lot of right now. I teach in high school, and all my seniors are about to graduate. They're about to enter the world and become adults. And I know a lot of them are feeling that feeling of insignificance. Like, I know something great is upon the horizon here, but I'm terrified of what that's going to be. Maybe I don't know what it is. What advice would you give to like some 17-year-old senior kids who are about to take on the challenge of living their adult lives, to kind of help them break through some of the same things you're helping entrepreneurs break through?
Acknowledge your shortcomings. Number 1, where am I most vulnerable at? That's key. Really realizing, what, these are my strong points, these are my weak points. And how do I shore up my weak points And also in the same token, realize in the room, I'm not so smart in the room, but can I get in a room full of people that are smarter that I can turn around and sponge off of and give me more incentive to grow? Because a lot of times you can be around people that will be just negative or not positive or not focused on the agenda. And you have a goal, you have a mindset. But lo and behold, if you don't have any people around you that can kind of be like, you know what, you're off a little bit to the left, you need to go to the right, they're steering you right. So you got to get in a room full of people that really understand your agenda. And that's based upon you again having foresight and hindsight. Foresight of where you want to go, and hindsight that you don't want to still be where you've been.
Now, we're living in a new age. Back in the day, when I first started in this whole business space, I would go to networking events. I'd show up to breakfast meetings, BNI meetings, and MLM meetings, and all kinds of different stuff, just to meet different people with different skill sets to try to move forward. Today, whole different ball games. Those things are not that they're not there; they still exist because the relationship building is vitally important. But there's so many different ways that people are connecting. And I feel like sometimes they connect, but they don't really build a lasting relationship to kind of help propel their business to that next level. What do you advise for people who maybe are feeling mental blocks? Maybe they feel like they're stuck. Maybe they're feeling like they're doing something very repetitive, trying to meet new prospects, trying to meet new business partners or networks, but they feel like everything I'm doing isn't working.
One of the number one things I say is when you acknowledge, as I said earlier about the F word, but I will say screwed now. When you realize, okay, I've screwed up, right? This is not working for me. Something is all wrong. What are you going to do about it differently? See, we get caught up in that mindset of, okay, oh, I'm done. Okay, now what? And that's the first thing I always say. Never tell me, what am I going to do now? No, now what? What else are you going to do? And that's the most important thing. What else are you going to do now? What other avenues are you looking at to incorporate a different strategy? Because if you know that's not working, you're going to networking meetings, you're going to this event and that event, and you're not getting people to actually give you a positive outcome, then that means you're doing something wrong with who you're networking with. That means you're getting the wrong ingredient. That means you got to level up and find other people that have the right ingredients that you need. But maybe part of the problem of it is that you haven't educated yourself to get the right people on your plate.
Now, speaking of the right people, sometimes it's that mentorship that makes a big difference. Since you're in the military space, some of the people that come to mind are like Jocko Wilkins, David Goggins. Some of these guys have like no bullshit mentality. Like every excuse you come up with, you just made up. Like there's nothing out there that is really blocking you or holding you back other than the limits that you've placed in front of you yourself. Who are some of the mentors that you look up to? Some of the people that became your inspiration to kind of move forward, and how should people kind of evaluate a mentor when they're looking to get one?
Henry Kissinger, Henry Kravis, Reggie Lewis, John Wayne is a strange example. And I can go down the list of Mao Zedong as a Chinese leader, and even Joseph Stalin, because these guys came from the trenches. They came from nothing. So the bottom line of it is I look at somebody that actually has the mindset, even if I never contact them, and most of the ones that I just mentioned, I've never had experience with other than Henry Kissinger and Henry Kravis. But at the end of the day, I look for people that have come from a space that I can relate to. They've come from the hood. They've come from spaces in there, whether it's the hood in suburbia or the hood in the inner city. And they come from a space where they built something out of nothing. And most importantly speaking, they're not giving me bullshit about this is how you do it. They basically say, okay, there's a gray zone. And that's what I want to hear about. What's the gray zone? What's that zone where things exist that you got to be creative about? And you got to figure out, okay, now today I got to meet payroll. Okay, I'm going to kite that check today because I got to meet payroll. These are realistic things that entrepreneurs deal with. Okay. Versus somebody saying, well, okay, you ain't got it. Okay, you got a credit card. You got to get it off that. You know, people that actually have real life experiences, that's the kind of mentors you want. They give you the real nitty gritty from the dirt, from the bottom up, and they tell you how it works. And I think the other part of that space is being able to understand that there are trials and tribulations. The greatest entrepreneur that I always say that is a mentor is one that has failed numerous times. If he hasn't failed, I'm not interested. I've got to see some failure. I got to see what you messed up at and messed up bad when you came close to disaster.
No, I agree with you. When I'm on like a fitness journey myself, been on it for a few years now. I'm best shape of my life that I've ever been in. But I would really love to have like that nice, fully defined 8 pack, right? And like, and so every time I'm looking at different routines and different people, I never take a routine from someone who doesn't already have what I am looking to get, right? Like if you have if your abs are ripped and you're showing me a routine, I'm paying attention. If you got jelly rolls and you're trying to show me an ab routine, I am not paying attention to you whatsoever. You got to have that experience, right? Because that's the biggest thing for me when I'm looking for a mentor. Did you do it? I think the ones who are successful had to have had the failures, right? Because you don't get from the beginning to that top level without tripping over your feet a couple times. And the fastest way to get there is definitely to find a mentor to help curve that learning, or to shorten that learning curve, so you can make sure that you get from point A to point B, or to point Z for that matter, but with coaching and with guidance. Now, as you've talked to different entrepreneurs, what's some of those overlooked skills that you feel like leaders need to cultivate in today's competitive landscape? Some of those skills that maybe they don't, and it really comes down to you don't know what you don't know, right? But they're going about their day, they're doing their business, they feel like they've hit a plateau. What are they overlooking?
Focus. One word, focus. I talk about it in my new book, TPS, on transforming trauma to triumph. If you turn around and you can't focus on the simplistic of things, right? Some people can't focus in the relationship. They can't focus in their day-to-day activities. They can't focus with family. They can't turn around and make sure things are just uniform, right? That's the hardest part. You know, you can be OCD, because I'm OCD at some extremes. You can be very much multitasking, but you got to get a task done. One of the things that I hate is people that are all over the place, and it's like, did you get anything done today? Yeah, I did this, that. No. Did you get one thing done that need to be done is crucial? And that's the one thing. It's focus. Can you focus on a path to get to one point to another? And you might have some unfinished business here and there and some tasks that need to be done, but can you focus on the master scheme and put pieces together on the master scheme, and at least get the master scheme done? That's the number one thing, to focus.
I think that's where that, earlier we were talking about a business plan that always goes to shit when you actually try to put it into play. But the truth is, part of that business plan is understanding where the end result is going to be. Where is it that you're trying to get to? And along the way, you're going to do things to get there. And I really like what you're saying about the, getting the one thing done, focusing on the one thing. I heard an acronym for focus. It says follow one course until successful, right? That's what focus actually is. That's a great acronym for you to remember. The repetitive nature of doing the one thing, even if you're not doing it perfect every single time, is gonna get you better at it over and over again. This is why you watch people that have amazing skills, maybe a street performer that is drawing with spray cans on a tile, and you see them just like going at it really quick, and then before you know it, they're done. They have a marvelous picture right in front of you, and you're like, how the hell did he do that? He did that with practice. He did that consistently. He had a plan, he had a vision, and he executed. And the first time, I guarantee you, he did it, it was not like that. It looked horrible and it sucked, but his practice got him there. What role do you feel discipline and structure, especially when people who come out of the military, they got that influence, how does that play in entrepreneurial success? Because I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs come out and they take those SOPs to a whole new level.
Well, see, here's the trick to that. See, even military minds have a fallacy and a flaw. And I talk about it in the book about the TPS when I say it's timing, precision, and synchronicity. TPS, I say the blueprint about it, because you have to have the right timing. You have to be precise and you have to be in sync. People want to say that success is based upon, oh, I was lucky. No, you were more than lucky. There was a blessing in there between you and God. There was that precision, whereas you were able to keep performing the same task over and over again. And the timing was right, because somewhere along the line, whether in the universe or whether just in the fact that you were at the right place at the right time, something happened. The bank employee was leaving that day and he said, screw it, I'll give you a credit line. Well, you were driving down the street and something happened and it presented an opportunity for you to turn off there and get some free food, whatever. The point of it is, those three things, TPS, come into play. And the military guys, which is interesting with that, sometimes they take it overboard because they're so disciplined that they don't leave room for variations. You still have to be varied enough to where you can think, okay, there's still room for some strategicness. There's still some room for wavering and variance for, being smart, because sometimes you're so focused on the target, you don't think about, well, what if the target moves? And I learned that about shooting, and so forth. Don't shoot the target, shoot ahead of the target, because by the time the gun goes off, it's going to be there. So this is what I mean about being smart enough to realize to be ahead of the goal, or be smart enough to realize the goal might change and you have to make a deviation or variation.
But ultimately, and I 100% agree with that. But ultimately, that action taking is what's going to make the biggest difference for the timing, for the potential. Like, for example, there's so many people who will study and suffer from analysis of paralysis, and they look at the other guy, and he's not as smart as they are. He doesn't know as much as they do. He's not as knowledgeable, or doesn't have that skill set or certification. But that guy got an opportunity, and what's the difference? The only difference is that guy was making things happen. He was doing instead of thinking about doing. And because he was taking that action, opportunities fell into his lap. There are things that happen when you take action that open up all kinds of doors of opportunity that you never knew were there, simply because you were moving in that direction. You were doing practical things, daily habits that put you in a position that you could be successful. So that comes to my question. What are some practical daily habits and routines that you might recommend to stay sharp, stay resilient, and hopefully have that timing and opportunities open up because you're taking that action?
One of the things I used to tell my friends, I'm the hustler street walker. I said I have my pumps, my high heels on, and my thongs on, and I'm walking every single day trying to get my grind on. Because at the end of the day, I'm consuming information constantly. I probably get 1,000 books a week. I'm probably on 300 or 400 various apps and so forth, constantly consuming. So it's like I'm hustling all the time. And at the end of the day, the big thing about that is reading, being in conversations with people, being able to consume information constantly, being on a learning curve, never stop learning. I mean, that's one of the things that goes sour. You say, I know this trick. No, change up, switch up, figure out some new things, spend some time around people that are doing activities that you wouldn't really do. Like, for example, I learned Spanish the hard way, going to DR and spending time trying to chase women there. It's like, okay, you're in a foreign country, you have no idea what's going on. You're gonna learn real quick if you want to get honey. This is just how it is. Yeah. So at the end of the day, you start adapting to things. I did the same thing going to other countries. You learn real quick when you're under pressure because you have a goal. The goal is whatever the goal is, and you got to figure out, okay, now I got to operate quick, fast, and efficiently. So the bottom line of it is maintain the strategy of consumption, information, knowledge, and learning. Always
consume, but also take that action. I love the military stories, and they're across multiple different types of histories, timelines, countries. But basically, it's when you find yourself in a situation, the only way to be successful and move forward is to burn the ships behind you. Don't give yourself, an opportunity to go backwards. Don't give yourself that opportunity to stop. Discipline is the one thing that's going to get you to wherever it is that you want to go, because motivation is fleeting. Some days you're going to feel super motivated to do it, and other days, most days, you're not going to give a shit. You don't want to get up in the morning. You want to hit that snooze button. Your bed is super comfortable. There are things that you just don't want to attend to, but that discipline, that's what's going to take you to that next level. So for the listeners feeling burnt out and stuck right now, what's your number one piece of advice to help ignite their comeback, to give them that spark?
One of the biggest things I say, which is important, is what and why am I here? What went wrong? Why am I here? Why am I feeling this way? And the answer to that should be, you missed out on the challenge. There was a challenge somewhere that you were given and was an opportunity to change, whether it was in your career, relationship, health, etc. And you didn't accept the challenge. It may have been all of a sudden there was a trainer that was like, listen, I'll give you some discounted training. You bypassed it. Okay, there's a deal to get something at a dating website or whatever else. And you're saying, I'm tired of this partner I've got, and I don't want to do something different. It cost you $25 to join this dating site, but you passed on it. The question becomes the challenge. You were challenged to make a change. You were challenged to say, I'm going to do something different today. The reason why you're burned out is because you've been doing the same thing over and over again, and you're not accepting the challenge that now I got to make a change. The change is just you just saying, listen, I'm going to do something different. It might be corny and crazy, I don't know what. But the bottom line of it is, accept the challenge. Look around you and start thinking. As I said, we're looking about the skyscrapers. What are you looking down at? You're missing opportunity. Sometimes those opportunities are right there in your face, and you just want to accept the opportunity to take that challenge and say, you know what? I'm going to change who I am because I'm afraid of what I might learn. Something new. It might be a crazy path, but it's another path.
But again, you're taking that action. Because I hear, one of my mentors, Billy Jean, is marketing. He has a great line that I love. He says, "There's no such thing as $1 million idea, only $1 million execution." And that's really, to me, what it always comes down to. You're feeling stuck, take an action, move forward, go outside, get off your feet, talk to somebody, pick up the phone, do something different than what you find yourself in that same boring situation, because those differences are what's going to make a change in your life. Darius, before we head out, if people want to reach out to you, if they want to find out more about what it is you do, give them the lowdown. What is it that you're helping people do, and how can they find out more about you?
Everything from consulting to now I'm into, which I've gone back to my previous business, was acquisition entrepreneurship. So I buy businesses on a frequency, but they can reach me basically at DariusARoss.com. And there's a new website now, which is DariusWrites.com. There are 3 new books now, Success DNA, Leadership DNA, and Timing, Synchronicity, and Precision, the Transforming Trauma to Triumph, that new book. So, it's like I'm writing books, I'm doing the acquisition of businesses and consulting and speaking. I'm available. So anytime they can reach out to me, those platforms.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There are a lot of people out there who have already reached the level of success. Some of them you can find in books. You can read from them. You can learn all kinds of stuff because they've poured their heart and soul and their experiences into these books to help you out. And then you get some opportunities where you get to hear them speak. You should always take advantage of those too. And then there's a third option where you can actually reach out to the author themselves, have a conversation, maybe even hire him to become your mentor. And again, each one of those things is going to shorten that learning curve. It's going to get you from point A to point B to point C, all the way to point Z a lot faster. But it's up to you to ultimately take the action. So what do you want to do? Do you want to just read the book? Do you want to hear the speaker? Or do you want to communicate directly with the mentor? Your choice. Go to DariusARoss.com, DariusARoss.com, and get yourself started. Take the action. There's no such thing as $1 million opportunity, only $1 million execution. So it's time for you guys to get it done. Darius, thank you very much for being on the program today. Ladies and gentlemen, we will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.
Pleasure. Take care.
And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast, but not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.com.